Hi everyone, I'm back to read chapter 5 of our book called Marie Grace and the Orphans from 1853, book 3, and chapter 5 is called Marie the Great. As soon as school ended the next day, Marie Grace hurried across the street to the orphanage. Sister Beatrice showed her the nursery. It was a long room with whitewashed walls and large windows. Philip had his own cradle in the far corner, and he was sleeping soundly. Philip likes it when people sing to him, Marie Grace told the young nun who was watching over the babies. Does he? The nun asked with a smile. Well, we'll remember that. And he likes flowers, Marie Grace added. The nun nodded. We'll remember that too. Marie Grace sat with Philip for a long time, rocking his cradle gently as he slept. When she returned to the sunny courtyard, Sister Beatrice introduced her to some of the other children, including a young boy named Charlie and a little girl named Katie. This is Marie Grace, Sister Beatrice told them. Perhaps she will play with you. Oh, yes, play with us, Marie Grace, said 4-year-old Charlie, who spoke with a slight lisp. Marie Grace saw a jump rope lying on the ground. How about tug-of-war, she suggested. She held one end of the rope, while Charlie and Katie held the other end. Marie Grace pretended to pull her hardest, but she allowed the children to slowly pull her over to the side of the yard. Finally, they all collapsed together in a heap, laughing. Katie tugged on her sleeve. Play with us again, Marie Grace, she pleaded. So Marie Grace organized a game of hide-and-seek. When it was time for Marie Grace to leave, Sister Beatrice called her aside. The children enjoyed your visit, Marie Grace. Marie the Great, she said with a smile. You may come back often if you like. Oh, I'd like that very much, exclaimed Marie Grace. All the way home, she thought of songs she could sing to Philip and new games she could play with the other children on her next visit. Marie Grace began to visit the orphanage every Tuesday and Thursday after school. She loved to carry Philip around the courtyard, and she always made a special point to sing to him and show him the flowers in bloom. One day, when she was holding him in her arms, he gave her a tiny toothless smile. Look, Sister Beatrice, Marie Grace called excitedly. Philip smiled. Sister Beatrice and several women who helped at Holy Trinity all crowded around Marie Grace. Philip smiled again. Mrs. Finch, one of the wealthy volunteers, exclaimed, Why, isn't he the most delightful baby you ever saw? He surely is, thought Marie Grace. When Philip napped, Marie Grace played with the other children. She was the youngest volunteer at the orphanage, and, unlike the older ladies, she was willing to run around the courtyard with the children, teach them dominoes and jacks, and make up new games. We like you because you play with us, Marie the Great, Charlie told her. Many of the children spoke French with just a few English words mixed in, so Marie Grace found her own French improving as she talked with them. She began to remember words and phrases her mother had spoken to her when she was small. Soon Marie Grace found herself switching between French and English without even noticing. Bonjour, hello, she greeted the children when she arrived at the orphanage, and they all chatted together in a cheerful blend of languages. As the weeks of June went by, each day seemed hotter than the last. In the mornings, the air was already warm when Marie Grace crawled out from under the curtain of mosquito netting that surrounded her bed. By noon, the whole city was boiling in the sun. Sometimes there was a breeze at dusk, but sundown brought swarms of buzzing flies and clouds of mosquitoes. Marie Grace got so many mosquito bites that Mrs. Curtis made her wear cotton gloves at night so that she wouldn't scratch her skin raw while she slept. Mosquitoes and heat weren't the only problems. One evening, Papa returned from visiting Charity Hospital, and he told Marie Grace that there were several patients who were sick with yellow fever. The news frightened Marie Grace. When she was 3 years old, a deadly wave of yellow fever had swept through New Orleans, and more than 2,000 people had died. Marie Grace and her father had both caught the fever that summer, but they had been lucky enough to recover. All Marie Grace could remember about the illness was her mother singing to her and wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. Now Marie Grace thought of Cecile's warning to Mademoiselle Oceane. Do people leave New Orleans because they are afraid of getting sick? She asked her father. Some people do, he answered. Papa took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. No one knows what causes yellow fever or how to prevent it, he explained. All we know is that the fever comes almost every year during the hottest months. Some years there are only a few cases. Other years, the fever is much more dangerous. For a moment, Marie Grace was silent. She remembered what Cecile had said about newcomers getting sick, and she asked her father if it was true. He nodded. Yellow fever can strike anyone who hasn't had it already. Most newcomers haven't had the fever, so they're the ones more likely to get sick. And these days, the city is crowded with newcomers. You don't think the fever will spread around the city, do you, Papa? Marie Grace asked anxiously. I surely hope not, he said. But Marie Grace saw 2 deep lines of worry etched across his forehead. At school, Marie Grace discovered that many families were leaving town because of rumors about the fever. Several girls missed the last weeks of class. Isabel, the new girl, left before the term ended. Her mama said it was too hot here, but I bet she's afraid of yellow fever, sniffed Lavinia, the bossiest girl in the class. They've gone to spend the summer in the country. Lavinia's friend, Sophronia, fanned herself. I wish I were somewhere cooler, Sophronia said. My papa says we'll leave as soon as school is over. Well, my papa's not afraid, and he says we're staying, Lavinia replied in her know-it-all way. He reads the newspaper every day, and he says there are no reports of the fever. All the talk about it is just plain foolishness. Listening to Lavina's chatter, Marie Grace felt a shiver run up her spine. I wish all the talk of yellow fever were just foolishness, she thought, but Papa says it isn't. July brought some unexpected cooler weather and lots of rain. Marie Grace and Argos had to slosh through puddles in the courtyard, and it was so wet that her dresses began to smell damp and musty. Marie Grace had hoped the rain might wash away the threat of yellow fever, but Papa told her that more cases of the disease kept appearing. Because school was out, Marie Grace was able to visit the orphanage almost every day. One morning, Sister Beatrice called her into her office. I have some good news about Philip, the nun began. Marie Grace brightened. She had been wondering when Philip would say his first word. Maybe he said Marie Grace, she thought hopefully. But the news wasn't at all what she had expected. Sister Beatrice told her that Mrs. Finch had become very fond of Philip. He reminds her of one of her grandsons who passed away several years ago, the nun explained. She's become quite attached to Philip. Marie Grace smiled politely, but she wondered why this was especially good news. Anyone who knew Philip would be fond of him. Sister Beatrice took a deep breath. Mrs. Finch has decided to leave for the summer, she continued. She's heard all the rumors about yellow fever. She's going to stay with family in Illinois. She wants Philip to be safe from the fever, too, so she's offered to take him with her. She wants to take him away, Marie Grace blurted out. She felt as if the world were spinning around her. How could Sister Beatrice even suggest such a terrible thing? Mrs. Finch wants to take him to one of our sister convents in Chicago, the nun explained. They have a fine orphanage there, and I know he will be well cared for. He's quite likely to be adopted. I'd never see him again, thought Marie Grace. Despair swelled up in her, and she stared at the ground, unable to say anything. Mrs. Fitch's offer is very generous, Sister Beatrice continued. Yet before I can allow Philip to leave, I must be sure that your father believes that the baby's mother will not return. Will you speak to your father for me and tell me his answer when you come back? Marie Grace nodded. She felt a glimmer of hope. Papa won't let anyone take Philip away, she told herself. All he has to do is say no, and Philip will stay here with us. That afternoon, Marie Grace gave Sister Beatrice's message to her father at dinner. We won't want Philip to go away, do we, Papa? She asked as she passed him the bowl of gravy. Actually, it sounds like an excellent plan to me, said her father, and he spooned the gravy over his beefsteak and rice. Marie Grace stared at him. But Philip is happy at Holy Trinity, and we can visit him whenever we want. Shouldn't he stay here in New Orleans? At another time, I'd agree with you, her father said. He broke off a piece of French bread and dipped it into rich gravy. But because of yellow fever, Philip might be better off in Chicago. We aren't leaving New Orleans, Marie Grace reminded her father. Why should Philip have to go away? 2 important reasons, her father said. First, Philip might get sick. You and I have already had yellow fever, so we won't get it again. But Philip has never had it. Second, Mr. Hurst isn't likely to go all the way to Chicago, so Philip would be safer here. So Philip would be safer there. Marie Grace wanted Philip to be safe, but she couldn't bear the thought of him being so far away. You said Philip would be safe at Holy Trinity, she reminded her father. And what about his mother? What if she comes back for him and he's gone? I suppose it's still possible that Philip's mother might return, Dr. Gardner said between bites. But in medicine, you prepare for the most likely outcome, not the most unlikely. And I think it's highly unlikely that his mother will come back to claim him after all this time. Really, the child would be better off in Chicago. Marie Grace pushed away her plate, unable to eat another bite. I can't let Philip leave, she thought. I just can't. When Marie Grace returned to the orphanage the next day, she tried very hard to avoid Sister Beatrice. But Sister Beatrice found her when she was playing cards with Charlie and Katie. Marie the Great, she said with a smile, please come to my office as soon as your game is over. When Marie Grace appeared at the office doorway, Sister Beatrice looked up from her work. Did you talk to your father about Philip? Yes, Sister, Marie Grace said slowly. What did he say? Sister Beatrice asked. Marie Grace suddenly remembered her father's exact words. He said, it's still possible that Philip's mother might return, she reported. And as soon as the words were out of her mouth, Marie Grace felt her face blush bright pink. It's not exactly a lie, she told herself. Papa did say it was possible, just not likely. I see, said Sister Beatrice, but she sounded disappointed. Well, Mrs. Fitch isn't leaving for a few days. Perhaps by the time she's ready to leave, your father will be ready to let Philip go with her. Perhaps, agreed Marie Grace, but her eyes did not meet Sister Beatrice's. Okay, and that is the end of Chapter 5. Next time we'll read Chapter 6 and of Marie Grace and the Orphans from 1853, Book 3.